Hello again. Read a rather interesting article on World Net Daily, and I'm going to turn most of it into a video. I'm going to add my own comments as I go along as well at the appropriate places that I feel that I need to add my own comments. I'll attach the link so you'll see the original document. Title: Global Jihad. You don't know what Obama said at the mosque. Dennis Prager, he's the person that wrote this article. President spoke a lot of nonsense, some of it dangerous. If you seek to understand Barack Obama and his views, the best place to go is his speeches. But you have to read them in their entirety, not rely on hearing them or on the media's summary of them. When you do, you realize how often what Obama says is morally and intellectually confused and even untrue. Hard to believe that he would lie to the American people, isn't it? The most recent example was his speech last week at a mosque in Baltimore. In addition to reassuring Muslim Americans that they are as Americans of every other faith, President Obama spoke a lot of nonsense, some of it dangerous. President Obama, quote, "So let's start with the facts. For more than 1,000 years, people have been drawn to Islam's message of peace. And the very word itself, Islam, comes from Salam, peace," end of quotes. Why did Obama say this? Even Muslim websites acknowledge that Islam means submission to Allah, that it comes from the Arabic root, Aslama, meaning submission, and that Islam is in the command form of that verb. That's why Muslims means one who submits, not one who is peaceful. I actually recall saying this in one of my countless other videos. Obama, quote, "Jefferson and John Adams had their own copies of the Quran," end of quote. The reason Jefferson had a copy of the Quran was to try to understand it in light of what the Muslim ambassador from Tripoli had told him. And John Adams, when asked why Tripoli pirates were attacking American ships and enslaving Americans, the Muslim ambassador explained that Muslims are commanded to do so by the Quran. See, this is why I have said countless times, those Muslims that attend a mosque on a regular basis are polar bears. It was written in their Quran that all nations which had not acknowledged the Prophet were sinners, whom it was the right and duty of the faithful to plunder and enslave, and that every Muslim man who was slain in this warfare was sure to go to paradise. This is the hook that the Prophet Muhammad figured out. Promised them something that they don't have in this world. Promise them paradise in the next world if they kill the kuffar, that infidel, in Riyadh. That's why Jefferson and Adams had Qurans. Obama, quote, "And how do we move forward together? It can't be just a burden on the Muslim community." What kind of burden on the Muslim community when you bring them over here and give them everything? Everything. What kind of burden is that on the Muslim community? And in helping authorities, most Americans would say that American Muslim community has to play the role, not a role, in preventing violent Islam from capturing the minds of American Muslims. It's actually destroying the minds of American Muslims. And in helping authorities identify extremist Muslims. That's an interesting comment towards the end of that particular paragraph. And in helping authorities identify extremist Muslims. I just did a video where Obama ordered Department of Homeland Security, you know that Jay Johnson guy, huh? To destroy all information that was gathered on Muslim suspects. Obama, quote, second, as Americans, we have to stay true to our core values, and that includes freedom of religion for all faiths. Well, that's probably true, Obama, but Muslims that follow Islam are following a cult, not a faith. It's an ideology. This is so obviously true that one wonders why the president felt it necessary to mention it. Obama, quote, there are Christians who are targeted now in the Middle East, despite having been there for centuries. And there are Jews who've lived in places like France for centuries who now feel obligated to leave because they feel themselves under assault. Sometimes by Muslims. Sometimes by Muslims. Who the hell else is going after the Jews? The Christians? Huh? The Polacks? The Czechs? The French? No, it's Muslims. And it's not just the Jews. It's anyone and everyone that doesn't submit. One would have expected that after mentioning Christians targeted now in the Middle East, he would have mentioned Jews targeted now in the Middle East. That, however, would presumably have been too controversial to say. So the president mentioned the many Jews in France who now feel obligated to leave their country because they feel themselves under assault. And then came the corker. Sometimes by Muslims, which is what I just stated earlier. Sometimes French Jews have recently been murdered, tortured, and arrested more than at any time since the Holocaust. And virtually every one of those attacks has been perpetrated by Muslims. Obama, quote, we have to be consistent in condemning hateful rhetoric and violence against everyone, and that includes against Muslims here in the United States, end of quote. Two facts are relevant here. One is that religious hate crimes are exceedingly rare in America. The other is that in 2014, the last year for which we have data, Jews were targeted in hate crimes 4 times more frequently than Muslims. I've also made mention of that in previous videos. Obama, quote, I often hear it said that we need moral clarity in this fight. And the suggestion is somehow that if it would simply say there are other Islamic terrorists, then we have actually solved the problem by now, apparently, end of quote. The president has made extensive use of the straw man, a false target that he then attacks. This is one such example. No one has ever said that if the president were to identify Islamic terrorists by names instead of nameless violent extremists, we would actually have solved the problem by now. Obama can't say violent extremists. And you want to bet nor can Jay Johnson? What drives most Americans crazy is that the President of the United States refuses to name the enemy. And this rewriting of reality filters down. Increasingly, for example, when and in 9/11 is taught in American schools, the attackers are never identified as Muslims. You know where the attackers pretty much all came from? You're not going to believe this, but Saudi Arabia. They were Saudi nationals. Obama, quote, and by the way, the notion that America is at war with Islam ignores the fact that the world's religions are a part of who we are, end of quote. Hey, Obama, once again, for the 100th time or the 10,000th time, Islam is not a religion. It's an ideology. It's an evil, twisted cult. Obama, in the discussion I had before I came out, that's interesting. In the discussion I had before I came out of where? Some people said, why is there always a burden on us When a young man in Charleston shoots African Americans in a church, there's not an expectation that every white person in America suddenly is explaining that they're not racist. This point alone should have been publicized by the media, that the President of the United States tells Muslims that they have no moral obligation to condemn violence committed in the name of Islam. Obama, American Muslims are better positioned than anybody to show that it is possible to be faithful to Islam and to believe in democracy, really. This is actually true given the theocracy, not democracy, is a central tenet of Islam. If an Islam compatible with democracy ever develops, it will probably develop in America. Obama. There are voices of Muslim scholars, some of who join us today, who know Islam has a tradition of respect for other faiths. Really. The mosque that Obama attended in Baltimore, the previous imam supported suicide bombings. Another falsehood, Islam has no such tradition. Islam has always demanded that Jews and Christians be treated as humiliated second-class citizens when not forced to choose between conversion or death. Now you know what President Obama said at the Islamic Society of Baltimore, but if you just read or listen to the mainstream media, you would have missed it, because none of this was reported. It was all about, as the headline in the USA Today put it, at Baltimore Mosque, Obama condemns anti-Muslim bigotry. Folks, you know, I've never done this before, I don't believe. I've never taken a World Net Daily article and read it in its entirety. And I did this for a couple of reasons. The absurdity and the obvious truth needs to be known by the American people. You know what really frustrates me? I went ahead before I made this video and I took a look at a number of my previous videos. They generally average around 200 and 250 views, which, with all due respect, to me is insane. I'm not saying that all my videos should be way up there, but there's a hell of a lot that should be viewed, a hell of a lot more than 200. You know, you reach a point where you ask yourself, why am I doing this? I'm not doing this for me. I haven't spent the last 3+ years of my life trying to inform people. I've got a lot of loyal viewers. I recognize them through the comments that they make. Folks, you better get it together. You really need to understand what's going on, and it's absolutely frightening. If you think Obama is simply going to fade off into the sunset, you're sadly mistaken. His work is not yet done. For him to have done what he did by going to this mosque, he's rubbing it in our faces. He's laughing at us because we're so stupid as Americans for allowing this insanity to continue. He's rubbing it in their faces by shutting down the Border Patrol, telling them if they even ask, why are you crossing into America, they lose their livelihood. He's told them that you can't arrest them because they can't be processed by ICE. And there's no reason to process them because when they are processed, they don't attend their deportation hearing. You really need to wake the hell up. I'll attach the link. I read you pretty much all that's there. The last comment I'll make is behind the photograph of this freak, this Sunni Islamic extremist, homosexual, Muslim Arab, there's some scriptures. It was reported that they say Allah. He's in his element. You know, one of the talking heads asked Donald, why do you think Obama went to that mosque? You know what Donald said? If you watch some of my videos on that topic, you would know what the Donald said. What he said are words that ring true. He said he probably feels comfortable there. Wasn't it Obama that said the most beautiful sound that he's ever heard is the call to morning prayer? What more do you need to know? Obama himself, countless times, has said, I am one of them. And their obligation is to destroy the infidel. Unless we're one of them, we're the infidel. Are you sort of getting the picture? Are you going to take this video and stuff it with the rest of them? Just thought I'd ask.